Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Bible study through the book of Isaiah. We are in Isaiah 2 today, and some of you asked me why you couldn't find the notes for Isaiah 1 on the website, and that's because our IT guy, who is useless and lazy and just a complete bum, who also happens to be me, forgot to do it and forgot to update the website because I'm somewhat out of rhythm. So I gave him a vicious tongue lashing, fired him, and hired a new guy who looks strikingly suspiciously similar to the guy before. Will he be more responsible? Probably not, but that's what we have to work with. So hopefully when you're watching today's video, the notes will be out there both for chapter 1 and chapter 2. Let's go ahead and get into chapter 2, our first page, so that it doesn't end up being 10 minutes like our last 5-minute study. When did these events take place? Well, you will notice on the outline every day, I've got a short summary of the chapter, just kind of hitting it really high level. We're not going to go over that in every chapter because we have the breakdown, but it's there for people who want to reference the notes, maybe who aren't going to go through these videos, but are just using the paper copies. The first thing we want to talk about is when these events happen. So as we mentioned, this is the beginning of Isaiah's ministry. So he is prophesying from roughly 740 to 680 BC. In terms of our key characters, this is also pretty much going to remain the same. We have Isaiah, the son of Amoz. God has commissioned him to be a prophet to the people of Judah. And then, of course, we have the citizens of Judah. And specifically, Isaiah does a lot of prophesying to the citizens of the capital of the nation of Judah, which is Jerusalem. For definitions, I want to remind you one more time of the meaning of the term Zion, of the couple different meanings that it can have. Zion refers to the hill or to the mountain on which David's palace was built in Jerusalem. This area is on the southeast side of the city. Now, Zion sometimes and very often in Isaiah is used to refer to the city of Jerusalem as a whole. And then we have an interesting one. Strike hands is our second word to define. Now, this appears in verse 6 only in certain translations like the ESV, I believe also the King James Version. There's another translation in, I think, the ASV and some others. But this idea of striking hands is to join hands with, to make alliances, and to delight in somebody's company, kind of to make friends with someone. Now we go over to page number 2 in our outline. Our first section today is really important. It's so important that it's actually repeated several times in the Bible by several different prophets. The mountain of the house of the Lord, verses 1 through 5. Now, this prophecy in Isaiah 2 does not seem to be directly connected or spoken at the same time as Isaiah chapter 1. So there doesn't seem to be a direct connection. So don't, link these two passages together necessarily when doing interpretive work. Isaiah foretold that the mountain of the house of the Lord, that's a fancy way of saying the mountain on which Jerusalem was built, because the temple, the house of the Lord, was in Jerusalem. So the mountain that Jerusalem is built on is going to be exalted above all the other mountains in the world. All other nations would flow into Jerusalem. And Isaiah prophesies that the word of the Lord would flow out of Jerusalem, and people would come to the city to learn about God's laws and how God wanted them to live. God and his law would judge the nation, settle disputes, and bring about peace. And this great kingdom that God was going to rule over, it was not going to be one that was ruled by military might. God wasn't going to have to teach his people to, fight, as most nations do, raise up an army to keep control. Isaiah prophesied that its citizens would reforge all of their swords into plows and their spears into hooks for pruning fruit off of trees. He says, quote, "Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore." And as I mentioned, this prophecy is really important, and it's repeated almost word for word by one of Isaiah's contemporaries, and that is Micah, the prophet Micah, in Micah chapter 4, verses 1 through 3. This brings us to section number 2, the day when God is exalted and proud men are humbled, verses 6 through 22. We're returning here to the theme of God's judgment against evildoers, specifically the people of Judah. God had reserved a special day that he was going to judge proud people, and there were definitely some proud people in Judah. The men of Judah had rejected the identity that God had prescribed for them in his law, and they had embraced foreign cultures. They kind of wanted to become like everybody else instead of being the people that God wanted them to be. God called them to be a distinct nation, but they chose instead to strike hands or to become friends with foreigners, adopting their gods, intermarrying with them, and becoming like them. Judah at this time had a lot of wealth and prosperity, and this made them think that, they didn't really need to listen to God anymore. They embraced idol worship, something that was strictly forbidden in the Ten Commandments that God had given to them. Judah was very proud to worship their idols, to worship their wealth, and worship foreign cultures, all while disregarding God. And God was not going to allow this to go on forever. On the day that God reserved for judging proud men, everything was going to change. These proud men were going to turn into cowards, throwing their idols away and hiding in caves and in rocks and in cliffs. They would fear the, quote, terror of the Lord. Men who once stuck their necks up really high in pride would be doing anything that they could to lie low to escape this judgment. Isaiah writes, "And the haughtiness of man shall be humbled, and the lofty pride of men shall be brought low, and the Lord alone will be exalted in that day." Verse 17. And on that day, all men were going to recognize the splendor and the majesty of God. So that's our breakdown for chapter 2, that first prophecy in verses 1 through 4, 1 through 5. It's really important and worth spending some more time with. But now let's go down and talk about our application for today. Men and women don't have a problem bowing down in worship. All people worship, even if you think you don't, even if you think you're non-religious. I promise you, you worship something. So we don't have a problem worshiping, but we do have a problem directing that worship towards the appropriate and worthy recipient. Every one of us worships something because every one of us has something that gets the balance of our time, our devotion, our brain power, our energy. And that's how we communicate what's really important to us in life. Unfortunately, some of us worship the god of culture, or the god of trends, or the god of fitting in, the god of wealth, the god of materialism, the god of pride, or some other god. The men of Judah worshipped many things, just not the true God. All of us need to identify what it is that we're worshiping. If you can't find time to pray, time to be with the church, to prioritize spiritual things, to pick up your Bible, time to give thanks to God, then you're worshiping something other than God that's pulling your devotion away from Him. You need to identify that thing or things and figure out how you're going to sacrifice less of yourself to that thing and more of yourself to God. So that's our lesson for today in Isaiah chapter 2. Lord willing, we'll be back tomorrow, cover chapter 3.